I've got two last questions from members. We actually sent out an email, Vanessa did, and we had a lot that wanted to ask, but we've just picked out two. Simon Young from Multi-Ed Australia says, how does Professor Smarr see the MBN role in improving wireless high-speed connectivity into areas that won't be at fibre to the home?
Well, like I say, if I could get 12 megabits a second in the U.S. on anything wireless, I mean, obviously locally I can do Wi-Fi and 55 megabits and so on, but that's pretty good. And you probably will have an opportunity to sell a lot of the United States. You know, if you look at a map of, say, California, which California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, that's 5% of the land area or something of California. California's almost entirely rural. It just looks like Australia, just sort of stretched out, right? It's all along the coast. That's where the population centers are, and the rest of it's rural, with a sprinkling of people living there. And by the way, we have probably more indigenous people on reservations in like San Diego County than any other in the United States. So it's not, you know, it's a lot of similarities with Australia. Telecom companies in the U.S. basically are saying, we can't make money serving rural populations. The only reason they did it for the last century was because of the laws that were passed under Franklin Roosevelt for universal service that said you have to do it. Right? Let's have a universal service fund and all that. But we don't have that for the internet. There isn't a universal service law about the internet. And so companies are getting away with just saying, hey, we like the profit margins in the city. So if you can figure this out, if you look at the way that Premier Bartlett talks about, we will make it equally good to live in rural, regional, or urban areas. If you can crack that problem, you have a global market. And remember, almost everybody in the world lives in an underserved area. And we're going to add, by the way, add 50% more people to the world between now and 2050 than there are here now. And almost all of them will be in underserved areas. So again, if you think about the global market opportunities of understanding what to do in Tasmania, it's pretty profound.
One more, Alec Young says, given you've sort of answered, but given the average income of Tasmanians less than other states, what do you see as the major driver of growth in the Tasmanian economy on the attainment of fibre to the home in the industry? And I noticed in the US itself, I mean, there's a lot of the carriers that basically give it away just about for free. It's just more about the content that goes on there. So do you see it being a challenge?
A very large fraction of the world still lives on $1 or $2 a day. Much, much, much lower than the average Tasmanian income. Okay? So but there's a growing sense that certainly, like in India, 600,000 villages, 1/6 of all people live in India. Cell phones are now on almost all those villages. And the main thing is people will walk 10 miles to a place where you recharge the batteries and walk back. You know. But I mean, and India has innovated in its wireless area, both on the handset side and on the wireless infrastructure side, to make it much cheaper per object sold. And these have profound impacts on the economy of these people who are living in relative poverty. And I think that's it's an emerging thing. So if you can aim your target at middle to lower income people, given that they're going to have this ubiquitous rollout, which is the crazy thing. See, I mean, if the government didn't do this, you wouldn't have. You'd be like everywhere else. And so you have a social experiment, a social economic experiment underway here. And it's an experiment, you know, don't fail.
I think that's a challenge that we can see. Sometimes being first to market's not always the smartest to market, but you learn from your mistakes. But Other times, being first to market gives you the head start, which, so it all depends how it's executed, I'm sure.
The thing that's most unique about NBN is its ubiquity. And so if you want to, smart money should be working on what's unique about your situation. And as I say, most of the world lives at the lower end of income, and therefore it is a gigantic market, and one that has been recognized now more and more people are beginning to build into. Now, you don't have to go all that way, down the logarithmic income scale, but still, I think the idea of a society in which everyone is using these technologies and not just people that are relatively richer, that actually, just from a business plan point of view, is pretty exciting.